My goodness, I'm excited for this discussion today. And I would probably say that this has been somewhere in my mind like 7 years plus in the making that I get a chance to be able to sit with Jess. And you know when you know people and you want to ask questions of them, but you rarely get the chance to be able to do it? That's why I figured if we put it on camera, we can get this done today. And I am beyond curious to understand from all of your experience, Jess, of what to do when people get stuck, right? Because I've been on the periphery of you being in this in your own life and around other people's lives, of people having some fairly big challenges and obstacles to be able to overcome. And I'm pretty sure that you've got a lot to say about it.
Oh goodness, that's a big one.
Yes.
People get stuck all the time, including myself. So are we asking, what do you do when you get stuck?
Well, why does it happen for starters? Why do people get stuck?
I think change. I think it's the moment of change that causes either momentum or a stuckness.
Okay.
It's the maybe zone, so to speak.
Okay. But why does that show up so often? Because I keep meeting people all around the world that are, I can't overcome this, or I think I'm at a blockage. I don't know where my next step's coming from. Why is it so present?
I think, lack of clarity is what you're talking about. And I think when you're in a moment of unplanned opportunity or unplanned change, because sometimes it could be momentous from something negative, it's a pause to make a good choice. No one wants to make the wrong choice. No one wants to make a bad choice. So I think it causes a pause that could linger for too long.
You've done so many things, achieved so many things, and a simple question I'd ask of you is did you imagine that this would be where your life is at today if you were to rewind maybe 15, 20, 30 years?
No, never. None of what I'm doing did I imagine I'd be doing. The only thing that I, without a doubt, certain about is I was not going to stop trying. Okay. Period. So at life, life in general.
So let's go back to young Jess. What did you think you were going to be when you grow up?
Oh gosh, young Jess had so many ideas. She wanted to be a gymnast at one point.
Okay.
That was short-lived. Not great at gymnastics. I think young Jess really was, if we fast forward to the point in which you're thinking about a real career. So I was leaving high school, going into college. I wanted to go into psychology. I wanted to help people. I was always fascinated about how people thought, how people chose to move forward or not move forward. And I got to the child psychology part of college and I was like, ooh, not for me, not for me. I'll just want to take everybody home. So I think that's it. And then life starts lifing. And you make life the best you can at any given moment. I'm not going to go with you make lemonade out of lemons, but you truly, I think it's a series of choose your own adventures.
Okay. So you're kind of saying life just happens and life means lifing. What does that really mean?
I think everyone goes through that period. I think we were talking about young Jess. Yeah. So I think when you're younger, life does get lifing. I was even just talking to a full-blown adult, and I'm like, how's life going? Is it lifing? They're like, it's lifing. So what I mean by that is we all get into the mode of doing. Okay. And it can be less intentional than we wanted it to be. And I think my young 20s, that was it. I was unintentional, but certain I wanted to make progress.
And how did that show up? How would the world have seen that?
I showed up in opportunities I had no skills in. So I had a lot of, hey, would you like to do work in this category, whether it was corporate America or property management, where I had no skills. I had no business really inquiring because I didn't have anything to bring to the table. And I think I just kept showing up, and I was willing to say, yeah, I get it. I don't have the skills, but I promise you I'll catch up. I'm moldable. I'm coachable. I want to earn my way.
What was happening up here in your head, if you look back at that, to step into environments that you're telling me today you had no right to be able to step into? How did you talk to yourself in a way that gave you the ability to be able to maybe step over those hurdles?
I've always had an uncanny belief that anything is possible. Right. And I think as long as you're willing to work for it, you're willing to try, you're willing to fall down and get back up, anything is really possible. And I think that came a lot from my dad. I was an athlete growing up, and I would achieve certain things that I didn't necessarily know were possible, and he would never stop and really praise. He'd say, what's next? Okay. And so it grew this desire of keep going, keep making progress, when you achieve something, it's good, but what's great? Find out.
In those early stage parts of your career, what was the group of people that was around you? Who was talking into your life that it was either telling you, go for it, Jess, or be careful, Jess, or what did you have around you as a support network?
I would say my mom, my dad, and my coaches. So I really fast forward, even middle school, I was in sports. I wanted to be a cheerleader, Phil. I went down the gym to try out for cheerleading, and I couldn't do the splits. Remember I told you I was bad at gymnastics?
Yeah.
And they were like, hey, you should go down to the volleyball gym. That's where you should start. And that's where my sports career started. So coaches, my mom and dad. My mom was, I went to etiquette school twice because once wasn't enough for me. I had to really learn that really well.
Okay.
And my dad was truly, he wanted me to strive for excellence. I was his third daughter.
Okay.
And I think he was hopeful for a boy. And he got me. And so he really gave me, I don't want to say tough love, but it was just let's see what's possible. Okay. You're made of greatness, go get it.
So what I'm hearing here is if you've got great coaches around you, you've got a great family network around you, you can go on and achieve greatness. What if you don't have those things?
I think if you don't have those things, you have to turn to any resource that can expand possibility for you, mindset for you, the idea that the world is bigger than what you know. And so that could be books, that could be podcasts, that could be YouTube channel has access, to everything nowadays. It could be influencers if you're willing to peel back the layer of sexy and, fun and really get down to, how often is this person filming to get to where they are today? So I think if you don't have the support system, you're not born into that. You've just got to seek it outside of that.
You got to build it and go kind of create it yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get this right? You early, sort of middle school, high school athlete, brave enough to be able to try, happy enough to say yes to everything, landed some good corporate jobs, allowed yourself to be able to progress, and then everything was plain sailing from there, and you just kept going
easy.
up and up and up and up, and everything was awesome, right?
No. I actually got pregnant when I was 19.
Okay.
So unexpectedly. And that was a mass change in course. And from there, I became obsessed with my identity was mine to create, and I was not going to take on the label of anything that I didn't see fit. So for instance, you're a single mom. I remember when somebody said that to me for the first time, and I was like, ooh, I don't resonate with that. Nothing wrong with it. The label is fine and it makes sense. But for me, it felt limiting. It felt like I didn't want to be presented that way. So no, things were not always easy. And I definitely fell down and had to rise back up more times than I can count. From there, it was growing up alongside my oldest son, who's now 21, lives in Colorado. So it's come with a great deal of challenge. I have 2 other children, so I went on to do the whole thing again.
What did support look like for you at that 19-year-old window? What was happening around you then?
I was really blessed. My mom and dad played a huge role in that. I decided not to go back to college at the time. I was at a university. I did online courses, went back home, lived with them. My sisters were still around. So I was really supported very, very well. I mean, I had a place to live. I had a roof over my head. I had a job. I think I was serving tables. I mean, I don't even remember. At one point I was working at a store for just a random clothing line down the street in Dearborn, Michigan. Yeah. I mean, I never stopped. I think that's the most important thing, that when I look back on the challenges that were hitting me or giving me lessons in, it was a choice of, do I surrender to an identity that felt limiting, or do I carry on and create something that was worthy of bringing a child into the world for, worthy for myself?
You said you didn't like the label that was put on you of single mom back then. What did you do with that up here to reframe it in a way that became useful?
The reframe for me was really simple. I don't, now that I'm a married woman, and even back then, I didn't ever, no one walks around saying, in a relationship, Jess Woodbeck.
Right.
You don't walk around saying that. You also don't, the first thing out of your mouth isn't like, hi, I'm Jess Woodbeck. I have 3 children and I'm married to a man.
Right.
That's not how it goes. So when I started thinking along that reframe, I thought, well, how silly. That's just not for me. Yes, I am not in a relationship. And yes, I do have a child, but I'm a hardworking woman seeking opportunity. And I was on a mission at that time to create generational wealth. I wanted to provide for my son in a way in which the odds were stacked against us.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want him to take that label on. I didn't want him to identify his childhood with, I was raised by a single mom. I wanted him to say I had an awesome childhood, period.
What other labels do you see in the world that, like single mom, that people could have either presented to them or that they could self-decide that potentially could have negative consequences or could do with reframing?
Yeah, other labels. I'm divorced.
Okay.
I think that can be a negative connotation for people or something that they hang up on as a loss. I think middle-aged. I think a lot of people moving into a certain age in life can start limiting their thought processes around those labels. I've seen that with my own family members as they age.
Yeah.
I think someone who doesn't have children and they are of age in which society says they should.
Okay.
People can get hung up on that. I think older folks that have chosen to be single instead of married. I mean, just defying the traditional societal norms, so to speak, I think creates these labels that people are outside the box that either empower them or limit them, depending on how they define it.
And you sharing that just even has me thinking about people that say they're smart or they're experienced or they're talented, and as much as you'd think that could empower, it can also limit potential there in the same way, right? Is if somebody's struggling with something but they see themselves as a smart person and can't open up to the fact that they might need to label that differently if they're going to create capacity for growth. And
oh gosh, yeah.
It just really makes me think about, like, how many times is there something we either accept that somebody says that we are and don't understand, is it serving or is it holding us back, or it's something we tell ourselves about ourselves that stands in our way of being able to create a better version of who we could become.
Oh, so powerful. I mean, like we say all the time, you change your words, you change your world.
Right.
And I think of something as simple as when you're little and your aunt says to you, oh, you sneezed around the cat, you're allergic to cats.
Right.
You go the rest of your life saying, I'm allergic to cats. I mean, it's that powerful. And then your mind, follows suit.
Yeah, and then you tell 1,000 people you're allergic to cats.
Yes.
And you,
the story's real.
Right. You don't have that little Persian cat, can't even go see Garfield in the movies. It's
exactly.
it's
you just hate cats. And then one day you have a cat, you're like, I'm not allergic to cats. You never were.
That's it.
You went 30 years.
And I think there's lots of that we all find ourselves with, right? Is that we've accepted a story that was told about us, either by ourselves, to ourselves, or from someone else, and carry that as baggage. And the fact that you didn't let that stick is a big deal. It's a really big deal. And how's that mindset served you in every other obstacle you've had to overcome in your journey so far?
I think it's allowed my response to the feedback of falling down to speed up. So instead of sitting in the pause for too long, or the maybe, or the isolated, I failed, and the world's going to think I'm dumb, stupid, ugly, whatever it may be, I have a rapid response to that. It's unusual, I think, in my world, at least with the folks that my family, my husband, anybody that's super close to me, I have a more logical response than emotional to moments in which are extremely challenging. Okay. I mean, don't get me wrong. You'll find me in the fetal position sucking my thumb if it's really bad, but not for too long.
Is that a good thing, to have a logical response as opposed to an emotive response first?
I think it's a good thing to understand emotions at a really high level and be able to say, hey, step aside. And I'm not saying ignore, and I'm not saying push down. Definitely release them, feel them. But I think there is something to be said about being able to override the emotion and still apply intelligence from IQ and logic. Yeah.
If we're to run the timeline from birth of your son to where we are right now, what is the highlights reel of what Jess has been up to, just to help people listening in today to what you see as some of the victories that you've achieved in your life?
I think the biggest is the thread of bravery through all of it. Pride in saying I can and I will. Okay. So when I had a great corporate job, and I still had a passion to do something a little more creatively, a little more in depth with people. And I think having the confidence that I'm able to succeed by having a son so young. I already felt that. Like I had created a world in which was healthy and he was healthy and things were good. So I was able to leave corporate when I think most people in my position, especially in the generation I come from, a secure job with secure health care and you don't usually walk away from. And I did when I was 7 months pregnant with my second child and said, if I don't do it now, when will I? Mm-hmm. So I think that would be the highlight reel, is just the thread of bravery of making big choices.
So big choice to be able to step away from a safe job, corporate role, being successfully paid with all the benefits that came with it. And then what did you do from there?
I became a realtor and scaled that quickly. I coerced my husband to also become a realtor.
Okay.
From there, I moved into, since he was supposed to temporarily be doing it, I was like, but you're doing it, so let's keep doing it. I scaled that into a sales team.
Okay.
Hired employees. We scaled so quickly, I was plucked back into corporate America on the real estate side with a large franchise, the largest franchise in the world at that time.
Yep.
I scaled those 2 franchises within the region to being last in the region to number 2 within 18 months.
Just number 2?
Just number 2. So close, so close.
Okay.
And then during the pandemic, when the pandemic hit, we had a disagreement in how business should work for people. And both models work. I just went in a model that was extremely protective. And so I went independent, launched my own company.
Okay.
I've launched mortgage companies, title companies, and everything in between that's in the real estate sector.
So how many companies have you launched?
How many? Coaching, title, mortgage, real estate. So what is that?
That's 4.
Is there anything else? Oh, you know what? I started a wedding business. Mm-hmm. Again, I really dangled my husband out there. He enjoyed writing our vows for our wedding, and he got ordained on our honeymoon. And I was like, great, let's monetize that. Put him on a website and built out a program for him. And he was Metro Detroit's hottest officiant for 1 year.
Justin, I'm sure it was like got that frame somewhere on a wall. It's
So we did that for a couple of years. I'm sure there's smaller things in there, like an ISA company that we would do some outsourced sales for. That lasted all of 2 minutes. That's a nightmare. Okay. Don't do that.
So not everything you touched just went to gold?
Oh, God, no. Yeah,
okay.
No. Yeah.
How many things have you launched or tried to launch that now no longer exist?
Oh, all of them except Thrive.
all of them except that 4 or 5. And that's
like
why we don't know the numbers.
Coaching is still there.
Is that real?
I got the big core business is still there.
Is that a 0.6 or a 0.2 or is that a whole?
Yeah, okay. Thrive's probably on its 6th rendition. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If people are in a corporate role and they're asking the question of do I stay or do I go? How does somebody work their head around that puzzle? Because it isn't as simple as being just be brave, go for it, go live your dream. What's a thinking framework you'd encourage somebody to go through if they're in that, shall I or shan't I go it alone?
I think this is such an important question right now, especially with social media, which was not as prevalent when I made this choice. I think the most important question is what and why do you want to sector off from where you're at today? I had a missing component of people work in my corporate work. And as I scaled out 5-10 years of sitting in that seat and climbing the ladder and being a part of these types of organizations, it was still going to be missing. And so I really wanted to fulfill that. It wasn't this, I am Jess Woodbeck, hear me roar, I must go out and be alone, which I don't recommend for people. I think teamwork is the way to truly succeed in life and achieve what you want to. So I'd answer that question first. Is it really missing from where you're at? Is it not possible there?
Okay.
And if the answer is no, then where else can I find this? And is it necessary for me to build it, or can I plug in where it's already playing loudly?
Fair question. Okay. And if it's playing loudly somewhere else, would you encourage somebody to make a career move to go somewhere else over starting something for themselves? What would your direction be?
I think it would depend on the person. What do they want to achieve in this? I think social media right now has everybody believing they should all work for themselves. and they'll all be millionaires very quickly. And that's just not the truth. I mean, even my own son was like, when I become a realtor, I'm going to make $1 million my first year. I was like, oh God, no. Who told you that? Was not me.
I'm not against you dreaming or believing that, but don't expect it.
But you have to earn your way there. So I think it depends on the person and what they actually want to achieve. If you want to achieve notoriety, authority, that can be done within teams. That can be done within other companies. If you're looking for your name to be on the door and the .com to be after your last name, like, okay, let's talk about what that means to you and how far you're willing to go to have that. Are you willing to take a few steps back to make a little less money, to lose some of that time pie into areas in which you don't want to work? So it's a discovery piece for sure.
Yeah, and it's compare everything with everything, right? It's you can't just compare the highlights of this and the lowlights of that.
That's the one thing you should not do.
Yeah. Everything with everything, and then add it up accordingly.
Yes.
Okay. And where does the logic come in there? Because there was a lot of feelings attached to that. And you said earlier on in our discussion today that you jumped to a logical type response typically. How does somebody work through the logic process of, okay, I'm not getting what's working in my current corporate role. It doesn't feel like I can get what I need here. It feels like I would be better somewhere else. And all of this energy charge of like, feel the fear and do it anyway. And this noise that's out there. What is the logical series of questions somebody should go through to help them navigate their next career move?
Well, I don't think everything I was pointing out was feeling based. I think, like I said, if you want the notoriety and the authority of I make all the shots, I make all the calls, like it also comes with all the risk, and we got to talk about that. So logically, I would say, when was the last time you achieved something great on your own? Okay. Exactly what did that entail? Okay. When was the last time you failed? And what did that do for you and yours? How did you recover? Okay. When those two things are discussed, I'd move into what's most important to you, money or passion. Can your passion remain a hobby? Highly suggest that.
Yeah. I don't know where this idea of like turn your passion into your business. You'll never work a day again in your life. No, you just lose your hobby.
You stop loving it. Yes. So I would go that route. I wish I could give you one solid question that answers it all, but it really is it's a discovery piece.
What you're saying though is you're saying zoom out, actually look at it for exactly what it is. Yes. Ask yourself all of the big questions and see where it all lands when you're looking at it from a big picture. Yeah. No impulse, sharp turns. Actually do it on purpose and understand the risk. Somewhere as close as you can, eyes wide open. 100%.
And I would say, turn your phone off for 30 days and see if you still really feel like you want to go after that thing. I think social media pushes us towards this happy button. Yeah. Chase happiness, fulfill happiness, monetize happiness. And you are the creator of your happiness, wherever you are, whoever you're with.
Well, and this thing will give every version of either confirmation bias or any desire for you to be able to see more of the thing that's either going to frighten you or attract you towards it. And like even in this discussion here, it has a presence, right? It's like we have these phones around us that perhaps aren't as good as helping us make decisions.
Amen.
Like, do you think people are going to ChatGPT today and saying, shall I leave my corporate job?
Oh, without a doubt. And what's it look like if I leave my corporate job? And how long can I make six figures until I make six figures? And what's it going to cost me?
What's the real risks of that?
You're not exercising your own voice. Okay. It's no longer your voice. These are your questions, but they're not your answers. Right. And I think there's some danger in that because it might not actually align with what lights you up and then what actually is meaningful to you. Right. ChatGPT doesn't know that you're a husband with children at home. ChatGPT doesn't know that you also like to take care of your body. Right. So it's not considering those factors. And I think that's a human nature piece that must be protected.
You're so right. And this abdication of autonomy over our own decisions to really robots is quite frightening.
It is. Yeah. I think I just unplugged all of my Alexas at home. I did go a little wild before coming out here. Justin's my husband, and he told me this bit of information around AI. And he's like, they're now using sonar to detect where people are in their homes. And as if we're in anyone's checking in on the Woodbecks in Metro Detroit.
Right, they're like, we need to know.
Take the Alexas out of here. We don't need them anymore.
Correct. Yeah. You can have some limits around it. And speaking of this whole sort of AI predictability, et cetera, and even this asking a question of things ahead of time to find out what it would mean, is I wanted to play a silly-ish scenario through with you as well, is that you've done something that I think is epic, is what was Justin doing before he became part of the real estate business that you built?
He's a police officer in Detroit.
So a police officer in Detroit, and not just any rank within the police, was doing pretty good at it too, right?
He's a corporal.
And you retired your husband from his role in the police force to plug him into your real estate business.
Yes, sir.
If you would have asked ChatGPT what that might go like, what do you think it might have told you?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think, well, my chat speaks to me in a very, like, you go, girl. So I think it would have been like, yes, Jess, this is a great idea. I think it probably wouldn't have laid out the timetable of lopsidedness that we experienced. It wasn't going to respond with the fact that it was going to take us multiple runs at making it successful. And in those downfalls, we were going to be broke. I don't think ChatGPT was going to share that with us.
Okay.
It might say, yeah, this is a great idea. Many people have left their corporate careers and moved into commission-only sales because there's no cap on it. There's no ceiling. This is a wonderful idea. How much money do you want to make a year? And then ChatGPT might use average price points and units sold and really be able to math it out. But in between all of that is the life stuff. It's the cost to obtain the lead. It's the time away from your family. It's, the cost of the admin you need because now you're in the field too much. You don't have time for the paperwork and the oopsies. I missed that addendum. Now I owe them my commission. And, it's not going to fill in those dots.
And now you're all in the same work all of the time, right? So there isn't,
it's lopsided.
You take time off, I take time off so that we can go be away from the business together. It's like, nope.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, conversations start there, end there.
What surprised you through that journey of working with your spouse, good, bad, or indifferent? What are some of the lessons that have come from that journey that are interesting?
Oh gosh, I feel like we need some wine for this.
Wine, bourbon, something.
Yes, right? Yes. What do I think I've learned? I've learned a lot about the dichotomy between femininity and masculinity.
Okay.
I've learned a lot about myself and how to adapt to the environment versus carry on an identity of like, I'm the CEO versus I'm your wife. Those are two different, I don't want to say personas because they're all within me, but it's two different mindsets. It's I'm very alpha in my working lane, and then when I get home, I'm done being in charge. I don't want to be in charge anymore. I want someone to tell me to turn right at the stop sign and, just sit down and the drink is there. So it took us a long time to respect that within one another. I think we violated those environments quite a bit with ego and pride and just uncertainty, not knowing, and both wanting it to succeed so badly, not just our marriage, but also our business, that we had every egg that we'd ever eaten in. It's just like all thing there. If it crashes, we're really screwed. So I think some of the highlights are we learned to release control in areas in which we know the other person had strength. We also learned to accept that neither one of us is great at all things. And I think that in a marriage in itself is really healthy to learn, hey, I'm good at this and I accept that. So I think the highlights are really boiled down to our communication has been enhanced greatly because we've had to learn so quickly in our business who's in charge of what, and respecting one another in those sectors and bringing that into our home has helped us realize we can apply that at home too. Justin and I don't argue, even in great challenge. There's less arguing and more solution seeking, curiosity around what caused it. There's no blame game. There's a lot of ownership, a lot of I'm at cause for this. I know it. There's no way around it. And so I think we leapfrog over a lot of the dramatized, nonsensical parts of relationships that are romantic. I don't know. I know in my previous relationships, they weren't dramatic, but it certainly took us a lot longer to get to the solution than it does with Justin and I. And I believe that's because of the way we've had to work together. I run this part of the business, he runs that. We trust each other in that regard, and Doesn't mean we don't mess up, but we communicate our way through it.
Mm-hmm. And the business that you built today, that you built together, is, how would you describe it at this point in time?
I describe it as thriving and ever evolving, growing. I'm grateful for that. In all the years we've been in business together, our business has never gone backwards. Mm-hmm. We've sustained it or we've grown it. And I think that's a testament to our will for effort, our will for striving to say, how do we plus one this in some way? I would describe it as a community-driven, heart-centered brokerage that cares about a salesperson's well-being and professionalism.
Okay. And is it what you imagined when you started it?
No. And I never imagined I'd own a brokerage. That wasn't part of the plan. I never imagined that we would have multiple locations or that we'd have the staff that we have. It was born out of necessity, and every layer since then has been a desire to answer a problem. And it hasn't been from a dream to own a brokerage that was club-like and community-driven. It just became, there's a problem to solve, and I know I'm willing to try and have the solution to it.
Okay. And you have this sort of mindset of never stopping and always being prepared to keep stopping and to not stop, but to keep trying, and regardless of having skills, to believe that anything is possible. What are some of the challenges that you've had to overcome in that journey in the current business? If you had to think about the kind of checkpoints or milestones that could have knocked you over, that could have sent this whole thing tumbling down, what are the key landmarks that we could look at there?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I would say I was not prepared for the exiting of staff or agents. That was a tough one. Mm-hmm. That was years of learning that lesson and letting go and not being obsessed over the rejection that feels like at first. That absolutely could have taken me down. And then I think from there, we're such a service-oriented company. There was a point in time where we had so many services, so many human resources that the revenue wasn't there to keep up with it. Mm-hmm. And so my first attempt at understanding truly a P&L and balancing it and making sure I'm cutting back when I need to, that red light, green light, that was tough in business. I think if I wasn't surrounded by people like you and having great mentorship of business moguls, that would have absolutely taken me down, because it was heartbreaking to have to do things like that and go through those things. I think lastly, the thing that could have absolutely taken us down is Justin and I not being on the same page.
Right.
And having a married couple be the founding members and then the founders that are actively leading the charge. That can be dangerous if it's not with two people that are willing to say, I'll put the business ahead of the romance. I'll put the business ahead of, in the business sector, I'm not saying in life, but for the work, our life would never interfere with it. And we're willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that we're men and women of our word and we take care of our people, and we're not frivolous about that.
I've watched you reinvent who you've become, how other people in your world have been able to go on and grow and do their own independent things that are them living out their dreams. We were talking about it even before camera today, is these people that have grown up in your business now going out and flying and living in ways that they could have imagined but couldn't have seen themselves actually doing for real. And I'm really keen to understand, how does Jessica Woodbeck think about reinvention? Because what you've plotted out for us today isn't like a linear graph. There is, okay, so now what? What does the version of me need to become today? What does the version of me need to become next? What does the version of me need to become? And from the outside in, I see some very conscious decisions around that. Is that true, or is it just been going with the flow?
No. I think that's absolutely true. I think I am obsessed with becoming, and that who I'm becoming is always dictated by the world we live in, the people around me, the next venture. Mm-hmm. And I think reinvention is born out of, I believe, need or opportunity.
Okay.
So it's either that away energy or that toward. And I seek for it to be toward. And so it's why I'm a personal development junkie. It's why I go to the masterminds, I get the certifications. If there's anything I'm chasing, it's definitely the evolution of my growth at all times.
How do you feel when people grow inside your organization to a point that the next chapter of their life is not inside what you built?
Is without me? Do I cry still? No, I do. How do I handle that? I have come to the point where I usually see it before it happens. And I accept it. I wish them goodwill. I have lots of contracts in place to make sure we're protected.
Right.
Learned that the hard way. But I think that there's something really special to be a part of somebody's journey that creates a new version of them that has aspirations beyond where they were and where they are.
If people are watching this now and in conversations with themselves about realizing they want to be a different version of themselves, they want to create the next invention themselves, where does that start? And how does somebody actually engineer a new version of self?
Well, I think it starts, there's 4 requisites of change, Phil.
Okay.
And it starts with acknowledging exactly where you are, where you've been, what could be limiting you, any baggage that would hold you back from actually becoming that next version of you, that next piece. You got to let that go. You got to acknowledge it and release it. And then you'd move on to creating. Who is it that you want to become? Is there purpose in that? Right? Is there real grounded desire versus I saw it on Instagram and it looks fun?
Right.
And then from there you create an actual goal. And then it boils down to 2 simple things: positive focus and intentional action. So positive focus sounds really simple, but it's much harder than it sounds. We can have positive focus in the beginning of anything new, shiny, and sexy.
Yep.
And then when it's hard, when it's raining and cloudy out and you just don't want to, when you're sleepy, that positive focus can wane and it can be like, well, not today. Well, I might not be able to achieve that now because X has happened. And that focus becomes either negative or obsolete, which derails you. And I think a lot of people miss that moment. And in that moment, it's the rewire back to, no. I said I want to do this because it's purposeful for me, it's driven and desired. And then intentional action. You have to have actual steps and a pathway to follow. That clarity piece.
So it almost has to make sense.
Yeah.
It has to add up.
Well, and it has to be something more tangible than an idea. Mm-hmm. It has to be like a well thought about, it has to be thoughtful.
I'm putting this through the test right now of even just somebody's on a health journey and wants to be able to recreate or reimagine or repurpose what they look like when they look at themselves in the mirror, how they feel when they wake up in the morning. And
yes.
I'm trying to break it, right? So what you're saying is it's acknowledge where you're at. Like, it's such a powerful starting point because it's too easy to look at everybody else's starting point on their journey and spin on the spot on that. And it sounds such a simple idea, but if you're 50 pounds heavier than you want to be at this moment in time, it doesn't do you any favors pretending you're not.
Exactly. Acknowledge you're there. Your knees are hurting. It's hard to do things. You can't go up the hill.
Right. And then take the time to create who with purpose. And Simon has taught us the importance of why, but it's more than that, right? You're saying it's actually real purpose is that there is like Y times 5 on this.
What about you wants this?
And your comment there is it's like more than a goal, it's a manifestation of who.
You have to see it. Right?
But you're saying who, not what.
Right.
Which is a big idea because I think everybody believes that change is that they want to become something, not someone, right?
Yeah.
And you're saying that you need to be brave enough to say who are you looking to be able to reinvent into?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've been in the same room when one of us says, right, we're not human doings, we're human beings. And so who are you going to be? Who do you want to be? What do they then do?
Yeah.
But usually people go into the human doings, right? Like, what are they doing? What do they have? Right. What's it like? Versus like, who did they need to be in order to have that?
And even if we stay on this health journey point of view is, if the purpose was as simple as because I want to look sexy on the beach during the summer, that might be one reason, but you start to get to bigger reasons like, is I want to be strong enough, supple enough, healthy enough to be able to play with my kids even when they're twice the size they are right now, or that you start to be able to add more purpose behind it that can then lead towards habits. And staying in this health journey again, is there's a big difference between you are somebody who works out regularly and that is who you are, as opposed to, well, what I want to do is to get myself to the gym for 3 days a week.
Yes.
It's a completely different, even self-talk, right?
Yeah, it's a becoming. Mm-hmm. Well, and think about that in that positive focus in this exact example, right? And the piece of getting derailed is, let's say you need back surgery. And now this is why you can't work out. You can't be in good shape. You can't get the weight off. You can't eat healthy because you don't feel like it. This is where that positive focus is so critical, because even in the face of adversity or challenge, you still have to overcome it and say, no, I just have to have an alternative route to plan A.
And positive focus, is that just as simple as focusing on what you can do, not what you can't?
Yes.
That simple? And then we need a final step of a plan, like intentional action?
Positive action. Yeah, intentional action.
Mm-hmm. Why do people not do that last step? Because I think lots of people do steps 1, 2, 3 in some way, shape, or form. And then it gets to the start line of like, yeah, but now it's go, and I've got to do it. Why do people not do it?
Because I believe that actually takes work. That's the work before the work, is what is the plan? And it's no different than I came in here and you said, what's the plan? And I gave you all my ideas and you're like, and how much does that cost? I said, Phil, I haven't done the work yet.
Yeah, right.
That's it. It's that simple. Ideas are fun. Ideas are sexy. Dreaming is fabulous. And then when you have to actually sit down and go, how do I make that real? And what am I responsible in doing? That's the work. Mm-hmm. That's the work. That's why people don't do it.
I don't believe that's fully true, because I've been in rooms like this one before and sat with people for a day and built an exact architecture of here's exactly what to do. Here's the complete plan with all of the steps and all of the work that needs to get done. And they see it and they believe it and they know they have the skills to be able to do it, and then they still don't do it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes because they're looking for an easy button, or they're borrowing somebody else's cheat code and thinking it's going to get them there faster.
Yeah.
Why, even if somebody has the plan, do they still not follow through with who they could become?
Well, I think the number one fear humans have is rejection, is that it's not true. It's fear-based. Mm-hmm. So I think it starts moving into the mindset of, what if I can't? What if that's not for me? What if I share with the world myself and I put this plan in motion and then I don't follow through? So I think it's a piece to, if I keep playing small, there's less harm in me doing that than if I take the swing to make a home run. I think when you want to play big and you start playing big, the hits are harder. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more blood in the arena, and it's not as sexy, and it's tough. I think it's just tough. I mean, I've been in the same position in many different facets of life where I go, I think the first time you helped me try and speak on stage, I was like, who the hell am I to go do that, Phil? You're like, what do you mean? You do it all day in here.
Right.
I'm like, no, this is different. You're like, not really. Yeah, I think it's a belief. It's a faith.
I believe that there is a fear that people have in unrealized potential, is that they hold safely to the fact that they can be something someday, but providing they don't try full on, they can hold on to the potential that they have everything it takes to be able to be there someday, one day, maybe.
Like a protected ego?
Yeah. And if they don't try fully, they don't go all in on the plan, then that potential doesn't get lost from them. They can keep that potential for as long as they like. And I look at the number of people that I've interviewed and discussed with and sat and spoke to, they're in their 60s, 70s, 80s, etc. They all love to tell you the story of what they nearly became. And how if only. And if this perfect set of circumstances come. Is that anything you've experienced too?
Yeah, I've definitely experienced it, for sure. Not personally. Well, I take that back. Of course I've experienced it personally. I've experienced it in the same exact setting you're talking about, speaking to somebody 60, 70, 80 years old going, I coulda, shoulda, woulda, and I didn't because, and it's never their fault. No,
it's always abdicated elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I think if we're inviting people to look at reinvention, is the safety I'd give them is that it will almost certainly not look like what you hoped it would look like. So if you had a plan for what this is going to be and you're concerned it might not work out, we'll deal with that right now, is it won't.
Yeah, exactly. Like I never dreamed Thrive would be, and
Correct.
here we are. Yeah, it's going to be different.
Yes.
And yeah, I think that's life. And I think if we could all understand that the living of life, the process is where it's at. It's not where we end up. And that takes a lot of the fear away.
Yeah, it does. And I actually think the point that you made earlier is when you focus on who you're becoming, not what you're becoming, you're stuck with the who regardless of outcome. So you can actually limit your risk when the focus is on who you're becoming as opposed to what you're going to achieve. And that is quite liberating. So I guess my final question for you, Jess, is who are you becoming?
The best possible version of me.
I hear that. I mean, but it's pretty kitschy, right? It's like, I want to be my best self.
How do I sit here and tell you who it's going to be? I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I really don't. Do you know who you'll be?
No, I don't
You have
think
ideas?
I do. I think I have ideas. And I think this is the point, right?
Yes.
Is we can say this, I want to be the best version of myself. And like, I know I won't be.
You don't think so?
No, I'm completely at peace.
Oh, I'm dead set on it.
I'm pretty sure that I'm going to do some more badass shit.
Of course, yeah. I thought you were going to say bad things. I'm like,
No.
yes, I'm also going to do
That too. But like, I don't know for sure. And I even think this best version of self stuff is dangerous place to play in. I think we all want to do better. I think we want to do more. Is the risk in reinvention conversations, in my mind, is that it becomes very easy for the mirror to be looking straight back at you, and it becomes something that feels like is a self-centered set of actions. Whereas really, anybody who's gone on to achieve a body of work in whatever work means to them through admiration in my side of things, is who they're becoming is being influenced more by who they're serving. So who are the people or what are the moments that they're in service of? And those are unknown. Like, you don't know what people are going to step into life and require your effort, energy, attention, skill set. You don't know what moments are going to require you to be able to step up for. If I was to answer who am I becoming, just better. That's all I want to be, is better. Whatever that might be, more so than best. But I think both of us struggling with this right now, even if it being a discussion, is the point, right? We're all making this up as we go along.
For sure. And I would argue that your better self at any given moment is best.
Okay.
I would argue that if we're on our deathbeds and you ask me like, hey Jess, did you do it? Did you become the best version of you? I'd be like, damn straight I did.
There you go.
Because I'm dedicated to the better.
Yeah.
And so if I'm always after the better, then it is going to be my best at any given moment.
I'm going to ask one more question because I think we need to close this out this way round. Is how do you deal with that though when you're stretched in that many different directions? Is entrepreneur, personal health journey, relationships with key stakeholders in your family unit, friends that expect the world from you, you build big networks, you have hundreds of agents that are looking for you for attention. Is how do you hold on to that belief system whilst also being stretched massively by lifing, as we're going to come back to what we mentioned earlier?
It's through leverage. I think the people that you surround yourself with matter. And I don't mean that from the people you're serving. It's the people that you align with that you can give an opportunity to serve the mission you're on. And that's the only way. And I think as we get better at it, as we continue to grow, we narrow our focus. And that's my hope as time goes on. Yeah.
Hey, Jessica, thank you for taking some time to talk to me today about your journey, your story, what it takes to reinvent, and so many of the truths that just come up in what it takes to better build a life. You're a badass. Thank you.
My pleasure.